Okay, church girl, just checking in with you before you listen to this message. I'm so excited about Church Girl Conference 2025 happening this May in New York City. Have you registered yet? There's no excuse to not be there this year. I promise it's going to encourage you, empower you, equip you, and you're going to hear a lot of powerful messages just like this one. So go ahead and register today at churchgirl.com, and I will see you there. Hope you enjoy this podcast.
The last 24 hours have been mind-blowing in the best way. I'm headed back home to Dallas, more in love with Jesus, inspired and encouraged. Pastor Kristen, Pastor Taylor, your church is incredible. I always say this, but I believe it to be true. There's two types of people. There's here I am people who walk into any space and just say, here I am, I'm so amazing, check me out, look at me. And then there's there you are people. And your pastors are there you are people. And this church is a there you are church. I walked in last night, a sea of beautiful women from all backgrounds. I was overwhelmed in the best way. And every single one of them locked eyes with me, talked to me, welcomed my friends. And I just think that's how church should be. And the church y'all are building is the church that the world needs, where you can walk in, you can come as you are and feel loved and encouraged. But it's already been incredible. That message last night, Pastor Kristen, 1 month after having a baby, and just fire, fire, fire. I love you. I'm so thankful for you. Big sister forever. And I'm just going to introduce my family to you, and then I'm just going to waste no time and go right into my message. But I have 3 babies and a husband. We have been married for 26 years, which is crazy. It's like a whole adult. Our marriage is a whole grown human. And he's my very best friend. He teases me and he says that I have a crush on Michael B. Jordan and that I like Michael B. Jordan more than him. But it is not true. My husband has biceps that are just like pop, 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 pop. So girls, don't settle. I may jump into that a little bit later in my message, but it's worth the wait. I settled at first, and then I gave my life to the Lord, which I'll tell you my story in a minute, but I'm so glad I waited on the Lord because he renewed my strength. Hello. And then also my 3 kids. Okay, so my oldest son, his name is Parker, and we just launched him to college, which is wild. And the 2 hardest parts in my life are the things that I was not ready for were 2 things. One, the first time my son brought a girl home. She was right across the table from me, and I was trying to just play it cool, but inside I was like, you could ruin my life. You really could. You have a lot of power. No book, no podcast, no one who's gone before me prepared me for that moment of being across from a girl that was dating my son. Bless. And then the other moment was sending him to college. Nothing prepared me for that because it feels like he was just a baby. And then I'm at Target just buying all the things to decorate his dorm room. And I'm like, no, I was just doing your nursery. And here we are. But then I have my middle son, Grayson. He is 12. So I feel like I have my hand in every season of parenting. I have the launched my son. Then I have a 12-year-old who loves all things technology, is an engineer brain. He's very brilliant. He's one of those kids that just talks, but you can't follow him. But you just nod and you smile and you're like, you're so smart, baby. But I have no idea what he's saying. That is Grayson. He has this innocent and childlike wonder about him. And then my little girl, Elle, is 8 years old. She made me the bracelet that I'm wearing. It says smile. And we call her the star on top of our Christmas tree. She was our surprise baby. As you can see, she does not look like me. So you're like, wait, trying to do the math. You're like, you're chocolate, Oneka, dark, deep chocolate. And she's Peach. She calls herself Peach. She's like, Mommy, I'm Peach. And out of the blue, my husband and I got a text message from our worship pastor at our church, and she said, a baby's been born. Do you know of a family that would want to adopt her? And actually, Casey, too, sent me the same text message. And I read the text to Earl at the time. This was, 8 years ago. We were building our church, just crazy busy. We're so set with our two. And I read the text to my husband, and he said, let's just put our name in the hat and see what happens. We weren't praying for a girl. We were set with our two boys. Our family was great. We put our name in the hat on a Monday. We were driving Friday to pick her up, and she has changed our life. And she is just my suddenly. So don't despise the suddenly moments in life, because it may not look like what you planned. You may not think, oh, this is, but God just shows up. And when he shows up, he provides, he comforts, he heals. And I love her with my whole heart. Hopefully you'll meet her one day. But let's just jump right in. We're going to start in Judges. Judges 1:14-15. Here we go. I love learning from other people who have gone before us in God's word. It's so easy these days to learn everything online. And, 1 minute we're like learning how to figure out, because makeup is always changing. I don't know about you, but I can't keep up with how makeup is changing. Sometimes it's the dewy look. So, sometimes it's no concealer. Sometimes it's all the concealer. Sometimes it's highlighter. Sometimes it's no highlighter. Sometimes it's like full face. Other times it's just shiny, like glossy face. I cannot keep up. But I feel like we are students, because we will watch a tutorial video for 30 minutes to figure out how to put something together, how to make a meal, how to do our face. So why not learn from other women in the Bible who, more than just makeup, can help us strengthen and encourage our lives? So we're going to just learn as if she was an influencer that we would want to follow. This woman, go with me, Judges 1:14-15. Her name was Asa. One day when she came to Othniel, that was her husband, she urged him to ask her father for a field. When she got off her donkey, Caleb, who was her dad, asked her, what can I do for you? She replied, verse 15, do me a favor. Since you have given me land in the Negev, give me also. Everybody say, give me also. Springs of water. So Caleb gave her the upper and the lower springs. The title of my message this morning is Give Me Also. I feel like God has called us as his daughters to not be shy, to not hold back in asking for more. He is calling us to say, God, I'm not going to limit you. When I was praying, I felt like I was compelled to remind us all not to limit God, not to live in God with our families, not to limit God with our businesses, not to limit God in our mindsets, not to limit God in the provision and the blessings that he has for us, not to limit God in the relationships, not to settle, not to shrink back, but to say, God, give me also. Give me also, you got me the apartment. God, give me also a roommate who can help me pay the bills. God, you got me the job. Give me also a boss who I find favor with. God, you gave me the man. Give me also a man who will speak favor and blessing over my lives. God, I got the job. Give me also creativity, wisdom that flows from heaven. God, I got the family. Give me also the wisdom to know how to parent and raise my kids. Give me also the strength to be healthy in community. So many of us have not been a part of healthy communities. So when we walk into amazing churches, we bring our old baggage. We bring the lies that we used to believe. It's okay to say, God, give me also fresh eyes. I believe today he wants to give us fresh eyes, eyes that can see, ears that can hear. But sometimes when we think small, we think, oh, I don't want to inconvenience God. I don't want to ask him for more. He's been so good. He's been so faithful. I'm just going to shrink back. But I felt like he was echoing and like screaming from heaven, tell the girls, they can say, give me also. And that's what this girl did in this story. She said, give me also. A couple scriptures that jumped out at me this morning just as I was studying. I was thinking about the times in the Bible when God has asked us to ask. Matthew 21:22 says, and whatever things you ask in prayer, believe you will receive. We're talking about give me also. 1 John 5:14 says, and we are confident that he hears us whenever we ask for anything that pleases him. John 16:24, you haven't done this before. Ask using my name and you'll receive and you will have abundant joy. This woman that we're learning about today, this influencer, she was not afraid to ask for more. And back then, that was not normal. Back then, you were just supposed to be content and quiet with what you had. Her dad, Caleb, said, I'm going to give my daughter in marriage to anyone who captures a certain land. Hebron was the name of the land that Caleb inherited. But he said, somebody's got to drive out the inhabitants. Somebody's got to get this land clear. And whoever does, you can marry my daughter. So this guy came along. His name was Othniel, and he did it. He's like, I got this. That girl is cute. I'm going to clear out this land. She's my motivation. And so she got to marry this woman who said, give me also. But it was not normal to ask for more. It was not normal to say, give me also. But this woman who we're learning about today, she had some fight. She had some stank. She had some dirt under her nails. And she said, I know you blessed me, Dad, with this land. But you know what? I need some water to, irrigate this land. So can I also have the springs? And as I was reading this and studying about her, I was blown away not only by her boldness, but also a few things that just jumped out at me. You know how you can zoom out on someone's life? I'm that weird person on Instagram that I'm like, oh, I know what hotel they're at. Or I'm that person, I'm like, I wonder where she found those shoes. And you can zoom out, I call it nerding out. And we can find anything. So let's nerd out in scripture on her life. So I zoomed out, I'm like, I wanna learn from her. I wanna be a gimme also chick. So this is what she did. Number one, she knew she could ask her father. Her father was Caleb, and she had confidence. When I think about my little girl, Elle, she asked her father for everything. And his answer is most usually yes. But we're in a new season of parenting where we're trying to get our life back. And we're saying no more because she thinks she runs our house, and she kind of does. But normally she gets what she asks for. And so how much more us as God's daughters should we not ask God for more? So she was not afraid to ask because she knew her father would bless her. Something else that we can learn about her is she did not settle. She did not keep her mouth shut and just bow down and say, well, I already got the land. She asked for more. She said, I want the springs also. And she was courageous. She was bold because she knew her father asked her and would give it to her. She didn't settle. I don't know why sometimes we decide to settle. I know before I met my husband and before I gave my life to the Lord, I didn't know my value. I didn't know my worth. I didn't know, I didn't know about purity panels. Thank God for purity panels that you're going to hear about today. I was just wild going from relationship to relationship, trying to find value, trying to give all my self-worth to the different guys that I dated. I didn't know that God set aside someone for me. I didn't know that I could renew my purity. I didn't know that God saw me as pure and holy and set apart, but he sees you that way. And I think sometimes when you have a past or you have a story or you feel like your life is too clean, you shrink back when asking him. But I wonder what the prayers in this room would do for our world. I wonder what the prayers in this room would do for our city and communities. Girls, we are going to be some give me also women. She didn't settle. Somebody say she didn't settle. She also was unified with her husband. They talked about it together. They came up with a plan, and she said, I need you to talk to my dad. So they talked about it together. Also, funny story about her dad, Caleb. His nickname was the dog because he was very intimidating. And so it had to have been very intense to come up on the scene to ask someone who was like a warrior and a great. And I'm sure on the donkey ride, she was like, no, you're going to ask. And he's like, no, you're going to ask. No, you're going to ask. No, you're going to ask. But finally, it says in the Bible, she got off her donkey, which was a sign of respect and honor. She wasn't like, I'm the favorite girl. Give it to me. You owe me, Dad. You have all this land. Why aren't you holding back the springs? She was very honoring and respectful, got off her donkey and said, give me also. She also used her voice, which I love. And I feel like God is calling us to follow her, to be women who don't shrink back, to be women who do not settle, to say, give me also. You could be dating someone right now that everyone in your world is telling you that is not God's best for you. What does give me also look like? Give me also says, God, give me the courage to lay this relationship down and to trust you with my future. What does give me also look like when you're a mom of a newborn and you're not sleeping and you thought that when you had a baby, life was just going to be like singing to you every day, that you're just going to get dressed and go to Starbucks and have coffee or your favorite coffee shop and be so cute in your stroller. And then you find yourself in your closet crying because you can't figure out why the baby's crying. That may or may not be my story of my firstborn. But with that said, what does give me also look like for the new mom? It says, God, give me the courage, the strength, and the anointing to be the best mom that you've called me to be. What does give me also look like when you get that business off the ground? Give me also leaders, women who have gone before me so that I can learn from them, so that I can glean from them, so that I can draw from their strength. What does give me also look like when you get married? You made your Pinterest board. You had everything mapped out. You knew the bridesmaids fits. You said, this is the color. You can all pick out your own dress, but it needs to be this color. We're doing this flowers. Everybody's doing a slicked back bun, or everybody's doing natural hair, whatever you pick, but it's all mapped out. This is the venue. This is the playlist. This is the choreographed TikTok dance that we're going to all do together. You have the wedding of your dreams. You have the honeymoon that's Instagrammable, but then you get home and you realize your husband is not who you thought he was. What does give me also look like then? It looks like, practically speaking, when he's sleeping, you put your hand over his head. He thinks that you're just being like a little... But really, you're like, God, I thank you for this man. I thank you that you have a plan and purpose for his life. I thank you that you are a limitless God. I call down heaven right now. I ask for miracles to be in my house. This house has been tense. I anoint it with oil. I walk around with a little olive oil because oil represents the presence of God. And I put oil over our bedposts, oil over our door, oil over our kitchen table, oil over every single piece of shoes he wears. I thank you that his feet are covered with peace. I thank you that he is on the full armor of God. I thank you that our marriage will live and not die and declare the works of the Lord. That's what give me also looks like. It doesn't mean you're selfish. It doesn't mean you're not blessed. It means that you recognize that you serve a God who can do exceedingly, abundantly, more than you could ask, think, or imagine. Another woman that we're going to zoom out on and just learn from her is Ruth. So many of us know her. Some of us may be just now getting introduced to her. But she also was a give me also chick. She was scrappy. She was innovative. She was bold. And she knew that even when all you know what went loose in her life, she knew that God still was a give me also father. We're going to dive into this story. Ruth 1:1-5. In the days when judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. So a man from Bethlehem in Judah, together with his wife and 2 sons, went to live for a while in the country of Moab. The man's name was Elimelech. His wife's name was Naomi. And the names of his 2 sons were Mahlon and Chilion. They were Ephrathites from Bethlehem, Judah, and they went to Moab and lived there. Verse 3. Now Elimelech, Naomi's husband, died, and she was left with her 2 sons. And I underline the word left because sometimes life feels like it's leaving us. Relationships, sometimes you feel left. Finances, sometimes you feel left. The state of your mental health, sometimes you feel left. And that word, I didn't want to just skip past it. I just kind of stopped at that word and was feeling what it feels like to be left, because that's what was happening with Naomi. She was left with her 2 sons. So I imagine she kind of talked herself to the place of like, well, I'm dealing with the pain of the loss of my husband, but at least I have my 2 boys. Verse 4, the boys married Moabite women, one named Orpah and the other Ruth. And they had lived there about 10 years. Both Mahlon and Chilion also died. And Naomi was, once again, left without her 2 sons and a husband. There was a famine in the land, so her husband said, we're going to go to this new land and find new life. There's promise there. There's hope there. Let's start a new adventure. So they get to what they think is going to be their new life, their new season, which that's happened to us before. We can find ourselves in this story. And then there's famine. And then there's death. Famine of hope and joy, because she goes from this woman who is married, 2 boys, to losing all 3 in a season. And I know that feeling like you do of unmet expectations. I remember when my husband and I, so our church is about 12 years old or 11 years old. And I remember when we first moved to Dallas. And I remember thinking, God, I can't wait to see what you have in store. I remember learning so much for the church that we were on staff at for over 12 years. And I remember not being, couldn't wait to apply what we learned and to love every single person that we met. I remember I thought pioneering, I just cannot wait to pioneer. I cannot wait to have dirt underneath my nails and be a light like a city on a hill. But what I didn't realize on the other side of our obedience was pressure, was pain, was discouragement, was isolation at times, was feeling like, God, did you really call us? Was this church our idea or your idea? And as the church continued to grow, and as God introduced us to the most amazing people, I remember the toll that it took on our family. I remember we had to move from house to house to house. I remember just not feeling settled and stable. And I remember feeling like this woman here, Naomi, just left. Like, God, I thought I heard you, but we must have missed it because this is not what I thought it was going to be. And that's how she felt. She was left, but left without her 2 sons and without her husband. And when you think about these 3 women together, they all had lots of things in common. Number 1, they all were single unexpectedly. They were all widows. They were all women who had been to hell and back. They were women, 3 women who probably cried themselves to sleep. 3 women who said, where are you, God, in this situation? We all have those moments. Some of us are living them right now where we're thinking, where are you, God? But even in this moment, this dark hour, Ruth said, God, I know that you're going to give me also. And we're going to watch her spirit. We're going to watch her tenacity. We're going to watch her grit, and we're going to learn from her. I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of Ruth 1:6 because Ruth had heard, or Naomi had heard, that the famine had ended in her town. So she was in her town. She left her town to find new life. Instead of finding new life, she felt death because everyone around her died. So she took her girls with her and she said, I'm going back home. Verses 8-10 says it better. Then Naomi said to her 2 daughters, they've cried together, they've grieved together. You know what? Just go back, each of you. I thought we were going to build a life together. I thought we were all going to sit at the dinner table and then I was going to be a grandmother and life was going to be exactly as I planned. But you know what? Just go back, each of you. And I imagine her just being heavy when she sang this, frustrated, alone, not filled with joy, like, go back, girls. But I feel the weight in her words and just those heavy words. Go back, each of you, to your mother's home. May the Lord show you kindness as you have shown kindness to your dead husbands. May the Lord grant that each of you will find rest in the home of another husband. And when I read that this morning again, I felt like, I know she didn't mean this to be, but I wrote down the word fake blessing. I think sometimes people in our lives will talk us into bowing out of the plan and purposes that God has for us. And it'll sound like a blessing, but you have to be able to discern and know the difference. She was speaking out of her pain. She was not speaking out of a place of hope. She wasn't speaking into their future. She was speaking out of her pain. So as women of God, we have to learn and to discern, is this a fake blessing? Or God, is this from you? Because she was saying the right words, but actually her words were laced with her pain. And so Ruth was able to discern that because she goes on to say, may the Lord grant each of you, well-meaning, maybe you shouldn't be about part of that church. They're just taking so much from you. Well-meaning. Maybe you should just give up on your husband. He just doesn't seem to, appreciate you. Well-meaning. Maybe your child, there is no hope for your child. And maybe your child always will have tantrums. That's just what kids do. Well-meaning. I'm just saying. So this is what she did. Then she kissed them goodbye, and they wept aloud. Verse 10, and they said to her, you know what? We will go back with your people. A little later, Naomi says, you know what? No, leave, and I'm going to try to convince you. Go with me to Ruth 1:11-14. But Naomi again, in her pain, said, return home, my daughters. why would you come with me? Am I going to have more sons who could become your husbands? Return home, my daughters. I am too old to have a husband. Even if I thought there was hope for me, see, she's feeling hopeless, which, rightly so, she's been through so much, but it doesn't mean that she's supposed to speak over their lives in this moment. Wow. Even if I thought there was still hope for me, even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to 2 sons, verse 13, would you wait until they grow up? Would you remain unmarried for them? No, my daughters, it is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand is turned against me. Verse 14, at this they wept aloud again. Then Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye, but Ruth, the give me also chick, clung to her. Orpah was there at first. Orpah had the t-shirt on that was like, Naomi, you my mom-in-law I always prayed for. I'm with you. I'm ride or die. Let's go. I don't want to leave you. But the minute she had an out, she was like, peace. We've had people like that in our lives, many of us. People that have said, I'll never leave you. I got you. We're going to do these great things together. We're going to stay single together. We're going to stay planted in church together. We're going to build our lives. Or I'm going to, you know what I'm saying? And then they just peace out on you. But Ruth, she clung tightly. And I believe I'm with a group of women this morning who know how to cling tightly. I love this. She clung to her. Here we go. Ruth 1:16 through 18. And we can learn from Ruth because, like I said, she's a give me also girl. This was her response. She could have taken the out. She could have said, you know what? My mother-in-law is blessing me to go out, so I'm going to roll. But she said no. She said, don't urge me to leave you or to turn my back from you. Don't urge me to leave my church that God's called me to. Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people. Your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. And there I will be buried. And I believe she was just like preaching back to her mother-in-law. Like, where you go, I'm going to go. Where you die, I'm going to die. Where you're going to be buried, I'm going to be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. Verse 18, when Naomi realized that Ruth was determined to go with her, she stopped urging her. When they got into town, Naomi said, you know what? Life has just treated me too unfairly. I'm going to change my name. Ruth 1:20 through 21. She said, you know what? Too much has happened in my life. Don't call me Naomi anymore, she told them. She was just all in the fields, but couldn't get out of the fields. She said, don't even call me Naomi. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune on me. Ruth was in her life for a reason. We all have those moments when we're thinking about changing our name because life has dealt us a hand that we did not deserve, or we made some decisions that we should not have made, and we're woken up to the pain of the decisions that we made, or we get to the place where because of the pain that we've been through, we wear the label, and instead of realizing that we are God's daughters, that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, that we're called, that we're set apart, that we're chosen, we rename ourselves a different name than the name that God has called us. So no matter the pain that you've been through, no matter the weights that you carry, no matter the struggle that you're presently in, you are his daughter, you are royal, you are stunning, you're anointed, you are fierce, you are bold, you are called, you are courageous, you're his mighty warrior. But Ruth, this was her time to check out. Just like Pastor Kristen talked about her, Nana, what was it? Mom, Mama, Nana, what was the grandmother's name? Nana, Kristen talked about last night, could have checked out when her husband died. She had 10 kids and was 45 years old, but she didn't quit. There's so many women who have gone before us. And Kristen said, I wouldn't be standing here today if she would have quit. And I'm believing that any of us that are thinking about quitting, considering quitting, listening to the lies of quitting, that by the time we leave here this weekend, that we're going to say, give me also, God. I'm going to stay in the fight. I'm going to keep trusting. I'm going to keep believing, and I'm not going to quit. Because here's the deal. We're always going to have an excuse and reason to quit, quite always. Ruth, she could have quit when her husband died. She also, and it would have made sense. She could have quit when her mom-in-law said, no, don't come with me. She could have quit when her sister-in-law left. Sometimes when you start a journey with someone and they roll out, it also makes you want to quit because you signed up together. But she didn't. Another thing that was interesting is she didn't quit when the woman that she looked up to, her mentor and her role model, decided to change their name. Sometimes people that we follow, people that we admire, go through dark seasons and they change their name. They become someone different than we know them to be. And the enemy is whispering in our ear saying, see, you can't trust people. See, they failed you. See, they've fallen. But just because somebody that you adore and admire quits and changes their name does not give you permission to quit and change your name. Turn to the girl next to you and say, I'm keeping my name. Yeah, we're not changing our names, girls. We're not. Go with me to Ruth 2:2. And Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, so they're left together. It's just the two of them. They started with a whole big family, and it's just those two. But Ruth is just, she's out there. She said to Naomi, you know what? Let me go to the fields. And I'm going to go pick up the leftover grain behind anyone whose eyes I find favor. I love that she was not too cute to go to the fields. I love that she was not too cute to not work. I love that she was like, where are the fields at? Who can I pick up behind? I think sometimes we think, I got to invent it. I got to be the first. And sometimes we do. But other times we can pick up from behind other people who have blazed a trail and gone before us. When there's someone who has a legacy of being married for a long time, I get right behind them and I'm like picking up a trail. I'm like, how do you handle this? How do you handle this? I'm going to pick up a trail. You can pick up a trail from a single woman who you admire, who has stayed the course, whose eyes are set on Jesus, who's not settling, who's denying the DMs. When the DMs slide in at 2 a.m., she's like, nah, man. You can pick up from her crumbs and say, how do you find the strength to do that? You can pick up behind a woman who has launched her own company, is crushing it. You can learn from her. You can interview her by following her story, by asking her to lunch, by sending a little thing into her DMs and say, how did you not quit? What was it like being the only woman? What was it like being misunderstood? I'm going to get behind you and I'm going to glean from behind you. I think that we do ourselves a disservice when we're too proud to glean. I'm not too proud to glean. I'm not too proud to be behind you and learn from what you learned. We don't have to do it alone. We can be like Ruth and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. I love that she was looking for favor. I love that she was expectant. I love that she was like, this could be a miracle. I'm going to school with my child. This could be a miracle. This could be the teacher that helps partner with me to unlock something that we haven't been able to unlock. This could be a miracle. I'm on my way to a doctor's appointment. I got a crazy diagnosis, but God, you have me here in this waiting room. This could be a miracle. I could be sitting next to someone that I could grab hands with and say, how are you handling this struggle? Can I get your phone number? I'm going to pray for you. We're going to believe God for a miracle together. You don't have to go through these appointments alone. Let's sync up our appointments and let's go together. I'm going to grab a hold of you because we're not doing this alone. She was looking for favor. What if we were women that were just looking for favor? You don't have to have a pretty life, a perfect life to look for favor. She found it in the field. She found it in the grind. Ruth 2, verses 3-7. So she went out. She entered a field and began to glean from behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Verse 4, Just then, Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. "The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you," they answered. Boaz asked the overseers of his harvesters, "Who does that young woman belong to? She cute." The overseer replied, "She is a Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi." She said, "Please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters." She came into the field, I love this, and has remained here. What if we were women who remained, just remained? Remained when no one was watching, remained when it was raining, remained when we felt misunderstood, remained when we felt alone, remained through loss, remained through the pandemic, remained through being laid off on our job, remained to someone who was unfaithful in a friendship or a relationship, remained when we felt misunderstood, remained when we weren't done right, but we just remained, not in an unhealthy situation, but we remained in the presence of power of the Almighty God. You can be rescued from unhealth, but sometimes when you're in unhealth and you get rescued, you forget to remain. You forget to sit at his feet and say, "God, I need you to meet me today. I need you to meet me in the subway. I need you to meet me in the car. I need you to meet me on my bike. I need you to meet me on my walk. I need to remain in you. I'm tempted to quit. I'm tempted to tap out. I'm tempted to say, oh, I'm just going to be like everybody else in my family. But God, anoint me to remain. I just wish somebody would remain. I just wish somebody would be immovable. I just wish somebody would say, God, I trust you even when what I planned didn't turn out." She remains. She remained. Another thing that she did. I love this. She didn't stop working hard. She said, "Give me also." I also love that on the other side of her pain, on the other side of her hard work, on the other side of her remaining, she met Boaz. And the keys can come out, the team can come out. Ruth 4:13. So Boaz, so this was the guy who noticed her when she was in the field. He took Ruth and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. We thought her story was over. We thought she was going to receive the fake blessing that was very well-meaning, but she decided to remain. She didn't leave the field. She was actually, we can be very creative with scraps, because she could have said, "I'm too good for that. I don't need to be in the field. I just need my blessing to come to me. I don't want anybody's leftovers. I'm going to make my own. I'm going to cook my own. I don't need nobody." But in the midst of her humbling herself, she found favor, she found provision, and she created a legacy. She was not too proud. So like I said, verse 14 through 15, Ruth had a baby. Naomi's story changed because she had a daughter-in-law who said, "Give me also." So now the women are saying to Naomi, the one who is going to call herself Mara, and I believe and I prophesy and I declare that women are going to say this to you. You've given yourself a name that does not fit you. And by being a church girl, by being surrounded by community, other women in your life are going to speak life over you and give you a new name. The women said to Naomi, "Praise be the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout all of Israel." And the whole team can come out as well. "He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is better to you than 7 sons, has given birth." Ruth stayed the course, and Naomi was given the joy of a grandson. But it doesn't stop there. Verse 16 through 17. So now Naomi is back to Naomi. She's no longer Mara. Imagine this. She's buried a husband. She's buried 2 sons. And look at what's happening. She's holding a promise. Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The woman living there, her sisterhood, her church girl said to her, "Naomi has a son." And they named him Obed. And some of us know this and some of us don't, but I'm just going to read it anyways. Obed was the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of David. On the other side of Ruth's yes was our salvation. Ruth married Boaz, who had Obed. Obed had Jesse. Jesse had David. David is in the line of Jesus because Jesus is called the son of David. So by Ruth not quitting, she was a part of the legacy of bringing Jesus Christ to this earth. And I wonder who you are going to impact by you not quitting. I wonder what's on the other side of your obedience, your grit, you staying in the field. I thank God for Church Girl. I thank God for this church. I thank God for the church that rescued me. I thank God for the women who have gone before me that I can glean behind. I thank God that they would remind me that anything is possible. I remember settling in relationships. I remember dating guys that I did not need to be with. And I remember church girls sitting across the table from me and saying, girl, you don't have to settle. God has better for you. God has more for you.